Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we are going down a rabbit hole that kind of mashes up the dream of getting rich quick with something that feels like it could be in a sci-fi movie.
Right.
You guys flagged this one for us, and it's a fascinating one.
It is.
The story of Andrew Carlssin and his impossible stock market success.
It really captured the imagination online, and it kind of took hold in those early 2000s internet days. And what's so interesting, I think, is how it takes a very real world of finance and then throws in this element of the fantastical.
Right.
So we're going to try and pick this apart.
Yeah.
And, really see where that line is between what could be and what's really, really unlikely.
And that's our mission today, right?
Yeah.
We are trying to get to the bottom of the Andrew Carlssin story.
Absolutely.
What was said to have happened, what kind of evidence is out there, and then ultimately, what are we to make of all of this?
Right.
It's really a fascinating case study in how a story can just explode online.
It is. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
It starts with seemingly ordinary investment in the stock market, around $800.
Right. Just a few $100, Not that anything that usually makes you a Wall Street legend.
Yeah, exactly. Not the kind of thing that would normally grab our attention.
Right.
But this is where this story takes its first kind of leap outside the realm of the ordinary.
Right. So what is supposed to have happened to this initial investment?
Well, it said that $800 grew with incredible speed to about $350 million.
$350 million?
Yeah. We are talking about an absolute mind-boggling return in a matter of weeks, maybe even days, according to some accounts.
Yeah.
It's the scale and the speed of this that really caught people's attention.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of return that makes even, the most seasoned investor take a second look, right?
For sure.
And it wasn't just, a lucky bet on one stock that happened to explode.
Yeah.
The story goes that Carlson's trades were consistently almost eerily accurate.
Yeah.
It wasn't just luck. It seemed like he had some sort of inside knowledge.
Exactly. This consistent accuracy is what fueled that suspicion of insider trading, right?
Right.
How could someone make these perfect calls time after time?
Yeah.
It just suggests a level of knowledge that you just can't get through normal market analysis.
Right.
And that's when the story brings in the SEC.
Right. The authorities are going to take notice of these huge games.
Absolutely.
So the SEC gets involved, and this is where things start to go off the rails a little bit.
Yeah, things take a very strange turn.
Yeah, with this confession, right?
Exactly.
So what happened?
Well, faced with these, seemingly impossible trading results.
Yeah.
Carlssin supposedly confesses.
Yeah.
But not to the usual kind of insider trading. He claims to be a time traveler from the year 2256.
A time traveler. I mean, that's incredible.
You got to kind of admire the boldness of that explanation, right?
Right.
The SEC thinks they're dealing with a financial crime.
Yeah.
And then, bam, this guy drops a sci-fi bombshell.
Yeah. What happens after that, after he makes this confession?
Well, according to the accounts that you find online, Carlssin then disappears.
Poof.
Yeah, gone without a trace.
Wow.
He is in custody 1 minute, claiming to be a time traveler with stock tips from the future.
Right.
And then he's just gone.
Gone.
It adds a whole other layer of intrigue to the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, vanishes into thin air. And then, of course, as we so often see with stories like this, the conspiracy theorists start to come out. Right. The idea that there was a media blackout about this entire event.
That's a classic element in a lot of conspiracy theories, right? Yeah. The claim is that the mainstream media, big financial institutions, they all intentionally kept this whole thing quiet to stop a panic or some major destabilization that the revelation of time travel might trigger.
Right, so this narrative comes out that there was a coordinated effort to keep this all hush-hush. And it's important to remember as we look at how this story emerged. It really gained traction in the early days of the internet, spreading through online forums and less established news sites.
Yeah, it's a crucial point because when you try to find solid, verifiable evidence for all these claims, what you mostly come across are those online mentions, articles, forum posts that repeat the story often without any real sourcing.
Yeah, it's almost like an echo chamber effect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The evidence that this story is true seems to be just more people online talking about it. We don't have reports from well-respected news organizations, no press releases from the FEC, no court documents, the kinds of things you would expect to find.
Yeah, you would absolutely expect that.
If something this crazy actually happened.
Exactly.
You can't just make a story like that disappear completely without a trace.
Especially not something this big.
Yeah.
And as we touched on earlier, the improbability of his financial success is often presented as proof in itself.
Yeah, the argument is that no one could make that much money so quickly through legitimate means.
Yeah, but as we always say, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Right.
Just because the outcome was unusual doesn't mean the cause has to be something equally outlandish, like time travel.
Right.
There might be other explanations that are more down to earth, even if they aren't as exciting.
And then the last piece of evidence we often hear is that there is no conventional explanation.
Right.
So if we can't figure out how Carlssin made all this money so fast legally, then the time travel explanation must be the answer.
Yeah, that's a pretty common logical fallacy, actually.
Yeah.
It's called the argument from ignorance.
Right.
Just because we don't have a normal explanation right now doesn't automatically make some far-out explanation true.
Right.
It might just mean we're missing something.
Yeah.
Or maybe the whole idea of those unbelievable gains is off to begin with.
Okay, so let's take a look at the other side of this.
Yeah.
The skeptical perspective, the counter-arguments that suggest maybe this is all just a really good story.
Absolutely.
And the most obvious point, which we've already talked about, is that there's just no credible evidence to back up the main parts of the story.
That's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
The lack of solid, verifiable evidence is why most people think the Andrew Carlssin story is a classic internet hoax.
Right.
It's a captivating narrative designed to go viral.
Right. It's like an urban legend of the financial world that just took root online.
Right.
And you can imagine how the details could get twisted and exaggerated as it was shared across all these different websites and forums.
It's very plausible, especially in the early internet, where there wasn't as much fact-checking going on.
Right. And then there's the whole idea of a lone time traveler manipulating the stock market to make millions upon millions of dollars without anyone noticing.
Yeah.
It just seems pretty far-fetched.
Right. I mean, we're talking about the global financial system that is constantly monitored.
Yeah.
These perfect trades making hundreds of millions would trigger all sorts of alarms.
Right.
It's just very hard to believe that this could happen under the radar.
Yeah. And ultimately, there's just no physical evidence to support any of these wild claims.
Not a shred.
No futuristic technology, no eyewitness accounts from reliable sources back then.
Nothing.
Nothing that you could point to and say, okay, this is proof.
Right. It all comes down to those unverified stories online.
So let's talk about why this kind of story would resonate with people.
Right.
What is it about this that made it so popular, and why are we still talking about it today?
Well, I think the biggest draw is that universal fantasy of striking it rich in the stock market quickly and easily.
It's a powerful dream that a lot of people have, and this story gives us this seemingly impossible but still very tempting shortcut to that dream.
It taps into that longing for quick riches without the effort, without the risk, without the patience that investing really requires.
Right.
And then, of course, you've got the timeless fascination with time travel.
Of course.
It's a theme that's been captivating us in books and movies forever.
Right. So you combine that desire for instant wealth with the mystery and intrigue of time travel.
Right.
And you've got a story that really grabs people.
It's a potent mix.
I also think that a certain level of skepticism towards financial institutions and the media might add to the appeal of this story.
That's a great point.
People who are already distrustful of those institutions might be more likely to believe in a cover-up.
Yeah. In a time when trust and authority can be shaky, stories about hidden agendas and manipulation, they find a receptive audience.
Yeah, it's almost the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Wish fulfillment, sci-fi intrigue, and a bit of that anti-establishment feeling all rolled into this financial puzzle.
Yeah, but there's a flip side to all of this.
Right.
Even if we just see it as entertainment.
Yeah.
There could be some downsides to a story like this taking off.
Right. I mean, on a larger scale, it contributes to the spread of misinformation online.
Exactly.
And it can make people less critical of what they see and read.
Yeah. If people accept an extraordinary claim without asking for good evidence, it can make them more vulnerable to other kinds of false information.
And specifically when it comes to finance, it can create unrealistic expectations about what you can achieve by investing. People hear a story like this and they think massive instant returns are a real possibility.
Right.
And that can lead to some seriously bad financial decisions.
Yeah. It encourages a gambler's mindset
instead
of a disciplined long-term approach.
And lastly, we have to think about the time and resources that are wasted investigating and debunking stories like this.
It's a real cost.
It takes our attention away from things that are actually important.
Right.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Andrew Carlssin story, it seems pretty clear that while it's a captivating tale,
absolutely,
it's more fiction than reality.
It's a prime example of how a good story can spread like wildfire online, even without any real evidence to back it up. It's really fueled by our desires and our mistrusts. It's a fascinating case study in the power of online narratives.
It really makes you think about why we are so drawn to these extraordinary claims.
It does, doesn't it?
Why are we so willing to believe? Sometimes even eager to believe?
Right.
The unbelievable? What does that say about us?
That's a deep question. It goes way beyond this one story. Makes us think about our curiosity, our yearning for something more, and maybe even a desire to believe that impossible things might just be possible.
Food for thought, for sure.
Lots to ponder.
Now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the Andrew Carlssin story? What parts of this did you find particularly interesting, or maybe even a little unsettling? How do you think these sorts of online mysteries take hold and spread?
Right.
Share your thoughts with us. We are always interested in hearing what you have to say.